What is sharpness in Monster Hunter Wilds, and why do your attacks keep bouncing off of monsters? Sharpness is a stat on your weapons, and it matters more than you think. I've got a few thousand hours playing Monster Hunter. Let me give you a quick rundown of what sharpness is. And because this is the Monster Hunter Wilds guide to everything, I'll also cover a few extra ways you can add sharpness to your builds that you might not know about. I was asked recently, why do my weapon attacks keep bouncing off of monsters? And this happens when you attack a monster that has a really tough hide and your weapons aren't sharp enough for it. Let me show you real fast. This is Gravios. Gravios has a really tough hide, and I'm using Hope daggers. And as we can see, I've only got green sharpness on these guys. And when I attack, I'm gonna bounce. See that, how I bounce off? That one got through because I hit his head. That's a weak spot. But if we get over here, I bounce my attacks. Having attacks bounce is real bad because it's gonna stop your combo, and it's also gonna leave you open to counterattack like that. And it may just end up getting you carded, which happens quite often to me. Now, there's more to sharpness than just weapon bouncing, but it is something that matters a lot. Throughout the hunt, as you hit a monster with your weapon, your sharpness is going to decrease. And it starts at a certain level of the weapon that you crafted. These Hope level 1 daggers, they have green sharpness. And as I attack, that green will turn into yellow and then to orange and to red. It'll make my weapon duller and make it bounce more often off of monsters. But the other thing it will do is it will slowly lower my damage. Each color of sharpness on your sharpness gauge is a damage multiplier. And the higher the color goes, the more colors that you have, the further up the sharpness gauge that you go, the more damage multiplier you get. And so keeping your weapon sharpened not only stops your weapon from bouncing, but it also makes your damage higher. You want to keep that damage up so that you can take the monster down faster. So the question then becomes, how do I get more sharpness? There's a few ways. Let me show you a couple. The first way to get more sharpness is to craft higher rarity weapons. As you can see here on the expedition tree, the Esperanza daggers at rarity 8 have a ton of white sharpness. And white sharpness is the most you can get in wilds at this point. We will probably get another color of sharpness in the DLC later. If we go down in rarity, we can see that that white bar shrinks, but we're still in white sharpness. But if we go down to rarity 5 here, now we don't have white sharpness at all. We're in blue sharpness. And that means those two things, right? The firstly is that the blue sharpness has less damage, not just as a raw attack stat, but as a damage multiplier as well. It also means that as we go up into white sharpness, we will gain a higher damage multiplier because the sharpness is white, not blue, and our raw attack is higher, on its own. Our raw attack is higher on its own in this weapon as well, and so the damage just goes up a ton by adding more sharpness to your build. The other way you can get more sharpness is by running armor skills or weapon skills that add sharpness. The most common one is a skill called Handicraft. Handicraft is a skill that per level adds more sharpness to your weapon. And so right now this deco is going to give me Handicraft level 2, which will add plus 20. And you can see here on the sharpness gauge, we've got like a highlighted white sharpness zone. That's showing that we're getting that much extra white sharpness on our weapon. And as we add more sharpness levels of Handicraft to our weapon, that gauge will increase, but it will never go past the end of the sharpness gauge here. It always just ends at wherever the sharpness gauge ends. It doesn't go any further than that. Razor Sharp is another skill that doesn't grant us more sharpness, but it keeps us from using sharpness, which in turn makes it so that you have more sharpness. Each level is going to make an increased percent chance that you don't lose sharpness when you attack, right? So Razor Sharp level 2 says on every attack, there's a 25% chance that we don't lose sharpness. Mind's Eye is a skill that also is interesting when it comes to sharpness. Each point of Mind's Eye is going to give you a percent chance that your attacks don't get deflected or don't bounce. At level 2, we get a 100% chance that we no longer have our attacks bounce. And we get some extra bonus raw attack power against parts of monsters that would make our attacks bounce. Mind's Eye is a way that you can add a skill to your weapon so that you never have to worry about what the sharpness of your weapon is. Your weapons will always go through and keep the combo running. You still lose sharpness for attacking, and you still lose the damage multiplier when your sharpness gauge decreases through the hunt, but you're not going to bounce your weapon off of the monster. And another reason I bring up Mind's Eye is because there are certain attacks on every single weapon that have innate Mind's Eye on them just for that attack. You don't have to have the skill on your weapon for it. The attack itself does it. For example, every hunting horn in Monster Hunter Wilds has a song called Self-Improvement. And Self-Improvement does a variety of things for your weapon, but one thing it does is it gives every single attack on your hunting horn Mind's Eye, which is sick. So you'll no longer bounce attacks as long as you have the horn song Self-Improvement on your character. And thankfully it's on every single horn, so you can always have it available. Also, the Great Sword, the last charge of the True Charge Slash, and I think the other charges too, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. When you do a big charged attack with your Great Sword, that big swing has Mind's Eye. You can't bounce that attack, but the other attacks leading up to it can bounce. And I could go through other attacks in the game on weapons that have that, but it would be a really long video for me to explain every single attack of the game that has Mind's Eye. But just so you're aware, Mind's Eye is a skill that helps with sharpness and helps with bouncing in a unique way. And weapons have some innately, and you can add it to your weapons with decos as well. And that'll give you the basics of sharpness and why your attacks may be bouncing off monsters or might not be. Sharpness is a very important skill. You have a way to replenish it in combat with your whetstone, so make sure you use that. You can use it on top of your sacred even, so you can move around and sharpen at the same time. But if you see your attacks bouncing, just take a moment to sharpen your weapon, or it might be time for an upgrade to your weapon so you can add more sharpness to its sharpness gauge.